First of all, thank you for being here, or whoever dragged you here. We appreciate them as well. This is something that we've been thinking about for a while, and I want to thank a lot of folks helped to kind of pull this together, and it's the first of what we hope will be many awesome Sunday evening conversations. First, want to thank our special guest Josh Perry for joining us tonight and being our guinea pig. Thank you, Josh. We're excited to spend time with you and learn from you. I want to thank just a couple of folks to help pull this together: is V Band and Sunny Lake there, Sunny at the top, and Lance Pendleton and Sky Michaels, and so many. Just wanted to welcome you to the No Sunday Scaries Club. And just quick, throw a yes in the chat if you had heard the term Sunday Scaries before reading the post about this event. Or is it? It's a couple no's. Okay. All right, cool. So this is being recorded, and we're going to actually publish this as a podcast every Sunday as well. A lot of folks, it's challenging to pick one time that works for everyone on a Sunday night. We totally get it, and we recognize that. So we're also going to start to publish these every Sunday night. I started to hear this term a lot lately with folks I was talking to, and it's in general kind of the feeling that may come over some people, not saying it's necessarily happening to everyone on this call, but may happen to you sometimes, where as the sun starts to set on a Sunday night, some feelings of uncertainty perhaps creep in, some feelings of potentially anxiety or stress creep in with the thought of what the upcoming week or maybe even just a Monday morning could be. And so one of our goals is just to create connection on Sunday night. And for some folks who are at a real estate convention with me this past week, our keynote speaker, Sean Akers, actually referenced this study, which I think speaks to, I want to geek out just for like 30 seconds here, just to give you some frame of reference. There was an amazing study that was done, what was it? It was in 2008, and it was across multiple professional universities, from University of Plymouth in the UK, Rutgers, William and Mary, and University of Virginia. And the study was relating social support and the perception of a geographical slant. So that was a really nerdy way of saying they were studying how people felt when they were looking at a hill, knowing that they were going to have to climb it, and the differences between knowing they were going to have to do it alone versus just even thinking about having someone with them. And when they were just merely thinking about having a positive person with them, a positive force in their life, the perception of the size of the hill was drastically different. It wasn't as steep when they were just thinking they were doing it with someone else. They hadn't even begun to climb the mountain yet. So what I know about the people joining this call tonight is you probably already respect and love being on teams. You love being around other people that inspire you. It tends to make things feel easier. And that's some of the little bit of the science behind this is, what if we rewired our Sunday nights where instead of just being on the couch watching Netflix, we actually just gathered with other people that we know, like, and trust, or have the same values that we do as well. And we just want to be around others because things feel better. They feel more fun. So if you want to geek out, just Google social support and the perception of geographical slants. It's an interesting read. And I want to start us off with a little bit of interaction. And we can do it in the chat box, or you can simply, if you have a little notebook with you or a piece of paper, I want you to think of and write down just one thing that happened to you today that you're grateful for. So take a moment. And I challenge you to not maybe jot down the first thing, but take a moment to reflect on even just the day, the hours you've been awake. What are you grateful for? Toss it in the chat, or toss it on your paper. But I wanted to get into the practice of ending our Sunday evenings with very specific gratitude. I'm seeing some of the notes. Talked to my daughter out of downtown. That's wonderful. Took a bar class. Beautiful hike with the wife and dogs. 2 accepted offers for Trish. Congratulations. Grateful for husband who was my rock. Time off of my phone. Went to a new spot for dinner. Good for you, Estelle. Lance got a massage. Great workout for Jimmy. Not surprised. House cleaning. Awesome. So as we're creating this No Sunday Scaries Club, it's important that we create some rituals in it. And one of the things that we'll continue to challenge is the reflection upon gratitude. But we want to make sure that we're doing it very specifically. If I asked you the question, what are you grateful for? we might go down the path of things we're used to saying normally. Oh, I'm grateful for my house and having heat. But we really want to zoom in on the specifics of the time frame, like today, because our brains are too smart for their own good. We tend to blow past the actual enjoyment of feeling of gratitude when we just go to that automatic response. Grateful for my health. Very important. But let's zoom in. I'm grateful because of my health. I was able to take that hike with my beautiful dogs today. So zooming in so that we pattern interrupt our brains, which is exactly what we're doing with this whole event here on Sunday night. We're pattern interrupting our normal Sunday night routine so we can have a different result on a Monday. Sound good? Quick thumbs up from everybody who's able to be on camera. All right, cool. So we're going to experiment with a couple different approaches to this event. And by the way, we are yearning for and would be delighted with your future participation. So we're going to model some behavior tonight by interviewing a really awesome guy, Josh, and having him just share his story and applying it to our own life. And I challenge you that if you showed up tonight, there's something that you could share with this group as well. So I'm going to share my email address in the box here towards the close of the event. If you're liking the conversation, if you feel like you want to be part of it and help to lead it and facilitate it, we'd love to have you do it. Jimmy, who's here, hey Jimmy, he's actually joining us next weekend. Amazing story as well. I'm not gonna spoil it, but I just want to say he has a ring that is a result of winning a Super Bowl, and he's got an amazing story that he'll share about how he accomplished one of his dreams when he was a young child. So you all have stories like that. We want to feature them tonight. Let me spotlight our good friend Josh here. Spotlight for everyone. Here we go, Josh. I'll pull myself up too so that you can see me. And what I'd love for this, since there are a lot of folks on the call tonight, if you have questions or want Josh to dive deeper into a specific topic that we touch upon, feel free to toss in the chat. We'll pull it up, and some of my colleagues here will be facilitating for us. And of course, feel free to direct message Josh to connect with him offline. Tonight's conversation is merely just that. There's no presentation. This is just a conversation. And I want to unpack a little bit of Josh's life so he can share with us. So Josh, first of all, thank you again for being here. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah. And let's maybe set the stage. Can you give us this kind of where it all began? Where were you born? Where were you growing up? And maybe give us the trajectory to as to what happened to you when you're 17, turning 18.
Yeah, so born and raised Cape Cod, Massachusetts, and got into school sports at a young age, like T-ball and then Little League, things like that. And then wandered off to the skate parks, just like all the kids were doing at that age, about 11, 12, 13. And then skateboarding, rollerblading led into BMX. BMX took over my life. It became an obsession and a passion. And I started to realize, oh, you can make a living doing this. It's not as common. There's no path laid out in front of you, like going to college, play sports there, and then go off to the pros. But I saw people doing it. And at the same time, I went to a trade school. Where I'm from is very trade centered. And I loved landscaping. I loved being outside, construction work, and then taking something and making it better. Didn't know that was going to be a theme for me in my entire life with my own health and things like that. But then it became a decision I had to make when I was 17, where I was in a co-op program. So I was going to work 2 weeks at about my sophomore year and earning money, earning credit for school, and less time in class. And then I was going to academics 2 weeks. And I was doing that for the rest of my high school career. And then there came an ultimatum with my boss one day in the summer when I wasn't going to school. It so happened to be the same time where the competition was at its peak. And I was now competing professionally in my junior year of BMX freestyle, and stopped playing school sports freshman year and all that. But this ultimatum, this choice really came down between him and his position for me or my dream. And lacking a fully functional prefrontal cortex, wasn't really thinking long-term. I was like, this is what I want to do. I love it. I'm passionate about it. My parents support me, my family is behind me. And I dropped out of high school and moved down to North Carolina to train with my heroes that literally I had posters of them up on my wall. And BMX is a really unique sport because you can go and train with the top, guys and women in the sport. Other sports, not very likely you'll be able to pick up a game with Serena or LeBron, things like that. But you just wander off to skate parks and you may happen to see the best in the world. And that's what competing professionally at the time, I got introduced to all these people, and I knew, I needed to be where the best were, training on the best ramps to have the best shot at realizing my dream. And I made it happen. And a couple years into moving to North Carolina, I rode an X Games, which was a dream come true. Didn't ever really fathom that being possible. I knew I wanted to do it, but I made it happen. And then things started to take a shift so that was June of 2009, March of 2010, training one day in the off season, I hit my head and got a concussion. And a little backstory there, it was about a year or so I've been complaining about, these headaches, debilitating migraines, vision problems, nausea, vomiting, on and off throughout the year. And went to the urgent care, the ER, whatever it was, and kept getting denied a scan, even though I had health insurance, sent home with pain pills, and told me, come back if you need more. So fast forward March 2010, hit my head. Obviously I had a helmet on, but still got a concussion, which I don't think people understand that dynamic. You can still get knocked out with a helmet on and there's still damage to your brain. But ultimately it led to the scan I've been, asking for about a year. And that's when they accidentally found a massive brain tumor. And so it made a lot of sense that, I didn't have a pain pill deficiency. I had something really trying to take over my life. And that was the start of my perspective of myself, my life, my health, and my reality as I saw it just shifted 180 degrees. And what led me on the path to how you and I connected, Jimmy and I connected. And it just taught me so much about, auditing different aspects of my life, how I'm showing up, the choices I'm making. And if it wasn't for that decision when I was 17 years old to pursue BMX, then I may not be alive today. And so very thankful for that decision and the support of my parents, which was reflecting on that now. I'm like, I don't know how they would have how I would have let a 17-year-old move, 13 hours south to pursue something very untraditional and drop out of high school. But I ended up going back, get my GED when I was about 20 and, been on this path of learning how to optimize my health, my mental and physical performance, and helping other people do that. And just, to, put a bow on this in the short form, over the years, I've gone through multiple surgeries, diagnoses, radiation, things like that. And it led me to the path I'm on today, which, thanks to meeting Isaac off self on purpose, he kind of made sense or helped me make sense of my story of what I was going through. Because 2017, I had a third diagnosis that was the catalyst to my decision to leave my dream on my own terms. I wasn't forced to. I wanted to do something more meaningful, to have more impact and more fulfillment in my life, because I was still competing, 7-8 years later, but I just didn't feel like I was doing anything with my life. Like I was still doing the things that I knew to do, other people knew me to do, but I wanted more. And so I left all that with no plan. I just was solely focused on what I wanted to do and why that was so. And I started my health coaching business. And then I think a year after that, I got asked to speak on stage for the first time. I had never done that. And now I've been pursuing that path here, 5-6 years now. And it's something I love to do because my whole objective is just to give someone an ounce of perspective change, a shift, because that's what it did for me. And it was getting that first domino was waking up to what I could be doing differently based upon what I wanted to experience in life. And so I love what I do today. And it's led me to, like I said, amazing people like yourself and Jimmy and our mutual friend Isaac. And it's put me in the place I am today of just giving back and helping people the best way I can. And so that's the short end of it.
It's a fascinating story. And so what role has fear played in your life? I mean, a lot of what you just shared with us is very decisive decisions of like, I'm going to do this, and you execute. But I know that fear has played a role in your life, and again, I'm wondering to what extent and how do you manage it? Because that's part of the reason some of us are showing up here tonight. There's some fear and anxiety about our week. So how do you address that? How did you address that in your life?
Yeah, I wasn't aware of it back then, but now I've come to learn what I was doing unconsciously, and I'm very aware of it now. And I do my best to consciously repeat these learnings, but it's ultimately looking at fear as just a signal of information. It's, a central nervous system speaking to us. And it's, conditioned over time. And thankfully, I found myself putting myself in a place of nonstop feedback in terms of emotions. And I conditioned myself unconsciously to, okay, here's what I'm experiencing. Here's what I want to do. I have a decision to make. I wasn't aware of it then, but I was like, I want to do a backflip. Oh, I'm a little afraid. I saw someone try, or I've had that experience in the past, but I just took all these emotions and I started gathering the information that was coming from it. Now, again, like I said, I'm very aware of it. So my perspective of wanting to help people know that before it becomes too late is what I'm really passionate about. So Today, I try to take every emotion and lean into it and fully embrace it, whether it's good, it's bad, whatever you want to label it, and learn what I can from the information that's coming. Because again, emotions are the central nervous system telling us that something's off, or good. It depends. We're talking about fear, so it's typically something negative. And so I look at it that way, as like a feedback mechanism. Okay, I'm looking at doing this. This is the information that's coming. Now let's audit. Where is my focus going to? Am I focusing? I love what you did. Bring up gratitude. Am I focusing on the things that I have to do, the things I don't have, where I'm not at? Comparing myself to other people, or am I facing something I want to do, but it's unknown? And we know the unknownness of life triggers a stress response in the brain, and it creates fear. It's the emotion we feel. So I've looked at it as what my tattoo says: fears is a thought. Thoughts can be changed. And there's a method that a friend shared with me a while ago. It's an acronym, TEAR, T-E-A-R. Your thoughts trigger emotions. They influence your actions, and your actions create the results or the reality you experience. And so that came along the way. And I just was like, oh, that makes so much sense, because I've been doing this unconsciously. I recognize something I want to do. There's an emotion I feel in the body, which emotions are the language of the body. Oh, there's some fear here. What am I thinking? Oh, I'm thinking about what could go wrong. Well, let's think about what I want to do. Let's envision myself doing that and what that feels like. And then the action is going to change one way or the other. And then, you get a result one way or the other. And if you don't like the results, go back to the drawing board. And it takes time. But honestly, at the end of the day, I look at emotions just as that information. And that's what's helped me tremendously. It's because we're not our thoughts. We're not our emotions. A lot of people believe that. And things like anxiety. How many people say, I'm anxious? That I hear that all the time. I'm anxious, I'm depressed, I'm unhappy, I'm sick, I'm tired. We're identifying with what we feel, but what we feel is just information from the external environment stimulating us internally to tell us something may be off or something pleasant's happening.
I know there's some children on the line tonight, so I don't want to get too graphic, but I do think there's an interesting topic. You're how many months out of your last brain surgery?
6.
6 months.
Yeah, in a couple of days. Yeah.
You look fantastic, by the way.
Thank you.
We in preparation for this, because this is one of those surgeries where you're actually going to be awake during it.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yep.
And you shared with me that before the surgery, you had never done this before. That was your first time being awake for the procedure, correct?
Yeah.
You went on YouTube to actually watch what it was going to be, because I guess A, what was your emotion around knowing you were going to be having that procedure while awake, and B, what was the decision behind actually going to research and seeing it for yourself before it happened?
I was excited this time. So the backstory of that: 12 years ago, when I had the first surgery in 2010, I was told I may be awake, and that just freaked me out. And that's when I'm like super curious. I have to see things and know things, and it makes sense because predictable conditions means a sense of safety or security and knowing what's ahead to the brain and the unconscious mind. So back then I was like, I didn't know this, but I was like, I need to look this up. I remember watching, it was like Saw 3 or 4, something like that. There was a scene I remembered. And then I was looking up brain surgeons on YouTube, and I was like, oh man, and thankfully at that time, I didn't have to be awake. So fast forwarding, 11 and a half-ish years, and I got the news that I'd be awake. And I was honestly thrilled, obviously nervous, but also excited, which those anxiety, excitement are about the same in terms of energy perspectives. And the reason was because I've been telling the story for, at the time, 11 and a half years of what I had gone through in the past, so many times that it almost became like unreal to me. If I didn't have the photos, the videos, the screws that I can kind of feel in my skull and see the scar, and I literally had the staples and stitches from the first surgery, I would have thought I'd been making it up. I've been telling it for so long, I hadn't lived it. So coming up to this recent one, I was thrilled because I was like, hey, here's an opportunity for all of the quote unquote theory I've been sharing about my life and how people can apply to theirs. Here's an opportunity to walk people through my journey, which I documented on Instagram, my podcast, YouTube, and all that stuff. Here's an opportunity to let people in of like how real this is. I'm not just talking theory. I'm talking theory and application and experience, and I'm gonna let you in. And it was a unique experience that many, I'd say most people will never experience, being awake for a brain surgery. So I looked at it all those lights, and I knew before, going into it, that would be, again, that's the thoughts that I want to give energy to. I want to focus on, hey, here's an opportunity. This is an exciting experience as a human being to be awake during surgery, actually participate in the surgery, which was trippy of itself, which I've documented in multiple different, areas of content creation. But yeah, I was obviously nervous. And then I just decided, I was like, hey, I need to identify as this person that's going to be courageous, which doesn't mean there's no fear. Of course, fear is there, but this was something I needed to do. And thankfully, I had been connected with this doctor, the surgeon, 4 years prior. And his name is Dr. Quinones, Dr. Q. On Netflix, he's episode 2 of a 4-part series called The Surgeon's Cut. And so a friend of mine reminded me of this man that I knew and the documentary that had come out. And I remember meeting him 4 years ago, talking about how they were filming it and this and that. And it was out. And I was like, oh, like, yes, like, let me watch this. Because it not only tells his incredible story of leaving Mexico and then, learning English, and then within 7 years being at Harvard, then Johns Hopkins, then Mayo, but it also brought you through a patient going through awake brain surgery. So there was another experience I got to witness to let me know, hey, like, other people do it, it's going to be okay. You talked about modeling excellence. I know Jimmy's here, so this is like a great NLP, theme. But there was an opportunity for me to literally see someone go through what I was about to go through and see them on the other side of it, and the courage that man showed, and his wife with him. It was everything that I had with my fiance Jackie, and we just took that energy and that focus that this is going to be exciting. This is an opportunity, and we're in good hands. And you have to surrender to that. Like, there's no controlling anything, which is what I've learned on so many occasions, which we all can if we reflect long enough and deep enough. There's so many occasions that taught us, one, we have no control, and two, things will be okay. Things are always going to work out. Anyone that's here right now has been through the most difficult things that they've ever gone through to be in this moment. And so I took all of these realizations, all these learnings, all the support, like yourself and Jimmy and my fiance Jackie, and I just dedicated my focus to being the person that didn't identify with fear and anxiety. And I was this is what I had to do, and I was going to do it. And with that, we were able to get the 5th tumor out, but the other 4 I've been living with for like 6 years because I was awake. Dr. Q was able to be more aggressive with the approach. And because of that, in 13 years now, I'm finally tumor free, which is an amazing thing to say.
Wow. What makes you wobble? I mean, all this all sounds so great. So you've got this process. Thoughts aren't facts, right? What knocks you off your balance? And then how do you get back onto it?
I mean, everything. I'm a human. We all share the same emotions. I still have anxiety and fear and sadness and depression. And just realized about a year ago, I was depressed after 2-3 years of my younger brother passing in 2018. And so it's like, that was the other opportunity I spoke about. So many people have heard me talk about these things for 10 plus years. And they tend to think, they perceive me as someone that doesn't have negative emotions and experience those, because I constantly do things I'm afraid of. And I had the second to last opportunity to be on stage speaking to people. Someone asked me in the Q&A section, like, how do you get up there without being scared? And I was like, honestly, I'm nervous. Like, I'm so nervous right now. But it was, again, the definition of courage. It's not defined by the absence of fear. It's recognizing fear and learning the information that's coming from it. And I was worried about what other people were thinking about me. If I mess up, what they would judge me about, this and that. And I had to snap out of it. I was like, that's not the purpose I'm here for. I'm here to inspire new perspective. And that shift in focus, that reframe, allowed me to push through, still feel the emotions and the adrenaline, but I just chose to shift my focus. So, I mean, I'm human. Like, I experienced the same things. I just went through something where I remembered, I was like, I just finished reading a book called A Dose of Hope. It's a book by Dr. Dan Engel, a psychiatrist, his story is phenomenal in its own. But it's a book written about MDMA psychotherapy. And it's written in the future sense, because I think they're in the last clinical trials. They have a 70% cure rate with PTSD, which is phenomenal. And I was reading it, and there was something he said in the beginning, is like, when you go through this work, whether it's therapy or medicine-based psychotherapy, you're going to unravel things. You're going to peel back layers. It's going to get rocky before it gets smoother. And I just had this epiphany literally 2 nights ago, talking to my cousin who was visiting for like 5 weeks and my fiance. And I was like, I'm in this place and I don't know why I feel just so heavy. I'm like depressed and I'm anxious. And like I have everything in my external environment. There's no evidence to support that. And I remember what he said in the book, and it had been like 2 weeks since I had finished reading it. And I was like, oh, I'm perfect where I should be. I'm in the perfect spot. I'm just, learning some more. It's uncomfortable. The emotions are coming up. And it took that to, oh, here's a signal of the emotions I'm feeling. Here's the information. This is what I'm supposed to be going through. Because without, stress, there's no growth. And so to answer your question again, like everything, it's over the last 12 years, I've just consciously repeated that to myself, whether it was after the fact, and now it's, during or before and after, of course. But it's just like, okay, here's what I'm feeling. Where are my thoughts? What am I focusing on? Oh, okay, let's shift them. And over time, it slowly dissipates and you start to feel the elevated emotions you want. And it's not about perfection, it's about consistency. And it's just about getting that needle to move forward one little inch at a time. And I love how James Clear in Atomic Habits, the book Atomic Habits, he puts it. It's like every action you take, every thought you have, every emotion whatever you do, it's like a vote towards the type of person, the life you want to have. It's not about 100%. It's about a majority vote. So if today all you can do is get out of bed, which has been literally 2-hour effort for me at times, that's it. You got out of bed. You didn't just stay there. And so, yeah, I go through the same challenges everyone does. The difference is of what I believe why I'm able to snap out of it, opposed to when 10 years ago, 11 years ago, I wasn't so quickly, was my conscious awareness and repetition over the last 12 years. And it doesn't have to take that long, but it took many wake-up calls of multiple brain tumor diagnoses and injuries and so many different things that we all experience to be in the space of like, oh, okay, here's what's going on. Where's my focus going? And what is it? Tony Robbins said it, wherever your energy goes, wherever your focus goes, energy flows. So it goes back to the TERRA acronym.
So Lance is writing in a question here. I want to get your blink on this, Josh. What's your take on how to avoid comparison thinking? Kids comparing themselves to others, or adults comparing themselves, their lives, or successes or failures to others. What's your take on comparison?
So I feel like I want to ask a question to that, but just to answer it on the surface, two things. One, that's being a human being. Like our brain unconsciously, I just read a book about the left brain as the interpreter. You can't help, the left brain categorizes things, labels things, and then judges things. Like it's just a human trait. I think that word judgment in comparison has a negative stigma attached to it. But for the sake of this and in light of it, the second thing I'd say is it's just about being aware of it. Even if it's after the fact, it goes back to the thoughts, emotions, actions, results. If you're finding yourself comparing yourself to someone else and feeling any kind of way you don't want to, what are you thinking about? Where are you focusing on? And then you can easily see the emotions you're feeling and the actions you are or not taking. And that's going to give you the results of the reality experience. So I know that's really broad and surface level, but it's one, accepting that that's being a human. You're alive, your brain's working. So that's what it should be doing. It's just a matter of reframing it and refocusing on being aware of what's going on and aware of what you're focusing on. And that, leads into a third thing, which is what I've done, is get rid of the stimuli, especially as an adult. Children, same thing. It's just, if you're noticing, parents will have to help with this, but if you're noticing you're feeling X by doing Y, get rid of Y. It's easier said than done, especially when it's things like going to school and you can't really get rid of that environment. But especially in today's modern age with social media, it's like, I do this. I think just don't follow that person, or just don't touch my phone, or that app. I mean, it's just, it's very simple, but because our brains are so complex, as you said earlier, our brains are very smart, but also dumb. It's a balancing act. And so I think, at the end of the day, it's just trust that your brain's working. Cool. And then two, audit, what's going on here.
All that. So you're working on a bunch of things right now. Well, before I jump to that, because maybe we'll wrap up with some of the things you're working on now. I'd love to know the role that nutrition has played in your life, because I've had the privilege of dining with you a few times. And I've noticed that just like you have clearly just demonstrated to everyone listening, your expertise in understanding your brain, how your body works, part of that's also nutrition. I would love to hear kind of the role it's played in your life, and or continues to, or maybe doesn't at this point.
Yeah, no, I mean, nutrition is, I mean, one of the most important things in terms of optimizing how our brains work, our mental health, our physical health, of course. I think a lot of people get that one, but how connected what we put in our gut affects our brain. You know, our vagus nerve connects to our gut, to our brain, like so profoundly. There's so many neurons in our stomach that neuroscientists, I don't know if it's officially been considered this, but they're calling it the second brain, like our stomach, our gut. And so it took a documentary called Food Matters. I haven't seen it in over 10 years, so I don't even know if I agree with it. But the main premise of Food Matters and what they talked about was what you eat actually matters. Like think about building a house. You're not going to use particle board to put up the walls. You're going to use treated plywood and 2x4s and things like that. For some reason, we don't think that way about our nutrition and our health. We know, drinking alcohol excessively, and I'm not saying just, drinks here and there, like enjoy it, but like, the regular thing, or going to McDonald's or eating processed foods or drinking soda every day, which I did all of those. We don't think that that's going to harm our brain. And I believe it's because we can't see our brain. We break an arm, it hurts. We can see our arm is broken, which I've done. It's not feeling good. We go get it fixed. Maybe we have to get a cast, we get surgery. With our brain, we don't see it and we don't think that what we're doing affects it, but in all reality, it does. It just takes learning. It takes understanding. And with the learning usually comes a baggage that comes up for people because there's so much emotion attached to it that we're unaware of. So there's one resource I want to give everyone, and that's called, it's a book called Grain Brain by Dr. David Perlmutter. That book changed my life. The book obviously it's about the brain. He's a neurologist. His father was a neurologist. His son, who I've met now, is about my age, is a neurologist now. And the book was written purely to have people understand the level of or to understand the correlation with your blood sugar levels and how it affects your brain, mentally or mental health, neurophysically, all these different things, and how it affects the functionality of your brain, the performance of your brain, or the opposite. And so what he talked about was how you can live your life to optimize your brain, things like nutrition, most importantly, but then movement, mindfulness, and not just like being aware of your mind, but like really understanding your, how your mind operates, and the things that we talked about earlier with, what you're focusing on, what you're consuming as far as content, the media, things like that, shows. But the most important thing that stood out to me was what we as a society often don't do unless you have diabetes, is check your blood sugar levels, see where they're at, and see what their response is to food, because that's going to tell you a lot about what's going on internally. And I think that that's something that's overmissed. And it's one of my biggest beliefs is health is internal. I looked like I do now. When I was 21, doctors wrote me off because they judged my book, or judge my cover like a book, oh, you're healthy. You got a six pack, you're a professional athlete, you're 20, 21, like you don't need a scan. But they didn't look at my biomarkers in terms of blood sugar or give me an MRI to look at inside internally. They just looked at the surface. A lot of us do that. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong. In my case, it almost killed me. And so that book talked about how health is deeply internal and how we can measure these things in our blood very simply and cost effectively. And then how we can eat in a way that regulates and optimizes our blood sugar level, which affects our brain. And things like ADHD and anxiety are exacerbated with high levels of chronic blood sugar. And people don't really, and I'm speaking about myself here too, in the past, like we don't, as a society, we don't understand what foods influence our blood sugar at what levels. And so that's just a great book for anyone to read. And I'm trying to keep this very surface level for the sake of conversation, but I can talk as much as someone wants to listen about this stuff. So that book's a great read, and it's very practical. And it really changed my life. So yeah, that's something I would definitely recommend. And then, like you said earlier, if you want to chat some more, we can always chat.
Yeah. So with that, tell us what you do now. So we know the past. We know you made a really big choice to walk away from the professional athlete, being a professional athlete. What are you doing now?
Now I'm a health coach. I'm a speaker, and I'm working on getting my first book out this year. And I'm also working on closing on my first house, my fiance, next week. And then after that, I'm putting all the paperwork through to start my own nonprofit, because I want to financially help people that were in the shoes I was but have families to provide for. I was very, very fortunate to have sponsors helping me out, a nonprofit that's action sports based that helped me out with other expenses and things like that. And I didn't have children. I couldn't fathom being in a position to where I couldn't work, couldn't earn money, and had to put food on the table. So I want to bridge that gap. And I also want to help with education, the things we just talked about, how people can optimize their health in very simplistic ways. I want to be able to provide that for the masses. And so those are the things I'm working on.
So coach us through here we have a couple minutes left. So in a few minutes, right now we're feeling connected. By the way, if you love Josh as much as I do, just want to give him a big hug after hearing him talk, go to joshperrybmx.com. You can check out everything he's working on and connect with him there as well. But Josh, so we're feeling great. We're connected to you. What you're saying makes sense. What thoughts are we going to give our energy to? We're all fired up. The Zoom closes and Sunday night hits us again. What pieces of tactical advice can you package up for us to win the rest of the evening and then tomorrow morning? And I guess, which is essentially what do you do? What do you do to prepare for the week ahead?
Yeah, I mean, two very simple but profound questions or could go like this. What do I want my week or my life to look like? Like, what do I want to be true about myself and my reality? That's the first question, and just see where it goes. And I want people to have the permission to open-endedly answer that question without limitations or restrictions. Just honestly answer it as pure as you can from your authentic self. What do I want to be true about myself and my life? And then number two, how can I make that happen? Just what's one thing I can do, one small thing I can do tomorrow or tonight or right now to make that probability, higher or, close the gap of what I want to be true. And like I said, it's such a simple question. And a lot of baggage may come up from that question, honestly. I mean, I know it has for me, and it continues to, especially as I continue extending my goals. And the monkey brain is like, oh, you can't do that. Like, what are you talking about? Like all those things. But if you just think there and just close your eyes and just think about what comes up, envision that future reality, I guarantee you'll feel some positive emotions or you'll alleviate some negative emotions. And then the second question of like, how can I make this happen? Or another question I love is, what would it take? That's a great start. I'm not going to get into like my routine and like morning routines and all that. Everyone's got their own thing. But those questions, I think, have helped change my life drastically over the last few years. And I love those questions because questions I find neutralize emotion. I mean, some questions can bring up emotion, but those types of questions, I think that could be very helpful for anyone in any area of life, any walk of life, any aspect of life, any progression of life. Just what do I want to be true? What would it take?
Love it. Just gonna let that land. I love it. A lot of great stuff coming through the chat, Josh. This was awesome. I always learn so much from you, and I think what I love is, and everyone listening can tell this too. Like you're not skimming the surface when you go to research something. Like you go deep. Yeah. If anyone ever has the chance to dine with Josh, you're in for a treat because you're going to learn so much about the food you're eating. There's things I remember from our lunch in San Diego to this day that changed my life. So I think one of the goals for this entire No Sunday Night Scaries Club is to make the connection. Because to your point, sometimes it's about how do I do this? Sometimes it's just about who. You've just met someone that has achieved so much, and now you're connected. So thank you so much, Josh. We really appreciate you being our first guinea pig here.
Yeah, my pleasure. I love being here. And I do want to say one more thing. Please. That's been appearing. I like my best friend who, I can share with the group that I'm going to ask to be my best man in a couple of weeks. I have a really fun way planned out to ask him. But something him and I have been discussing, and it's actually, I think this one, like the most recent or second most recent podcast episode I put out. I have like 25 I've like been sitting on. I think it was titled, what was it titled? But anyways, what the theme that we've been talking about is being more, doing less. Because we often get caught up, we have to do. And so he shared this quote from a book that he read about how being is for the soul and doing is for the body. And we get caught up in thinking we need to do and do more and learn more. Sometimes we just have to be. And the present moment is the only thing that's actually real. The past has already happened. The future has yet to happen. What's happening right now, what we're doing, what we're sharing in this community, that's real. And being in this present moment has everything that we are looking for. It's just a matter about being. And we get caught up, especially Sunday night, looking at the week ahead, all the responsibilities, like all that builds up. Just take a second and just give yourself permission to just be for a minute. And that's been the theme of my life, is getting to that point of letting go and just like, I don't need to do all these things. I don't need to accomplish these things to validate myself to other people that may or may not know me or may not even care about me. Just be. And on that note, there's a great book, Be Here Now by Ram Dass, AKA Richard Albert, that talks extensively about being in the present moment, how powerful it is. So I just want to leave the conversation with that. Just give yourself permission to just be once in a while.
Thank you, Josh. And the podcast is the Gray Matters podcast, correct?
Yes. Yeah, it's linked on the website. So if you go to the website, just click podcast. It'll bring you straight to the podcast website.
JoshPerryBMX.com, JOSH. Love it. Josh, thank you so much for being our first speaker on the No Sunday Scaries Club. We appreciate it, man.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it as well. And I'm looking forward to next weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you all so much for being here. I appreciate it. We look forward to the feedback, to questions, comments. And of course, we'll join you next weekend where Jimmy Farris joins us. Jimmy, we're excited to have you, man.